Hey tubers, how insane were the conditions in this race? Wow, I was really looking forward to doing a full breakdown of this race just because it is one of the steepest slaloms on the World Cup. Unfortunately, the weather did have a big part in how everyone performed, but in saying that, the two Tech Kings still were number 1, number 2. Obviously, there are so many small details in racing, but I just wanted to cover one little aspect in this week's breakdown that I thought was really interesting. It is a battle between a classical style versus a new school style, young versus older. And for the guys watching that have been skiing for a long time, you guys are going to understand this technique. But for a lot of the younger guys who are coming up racing right now, it may be a forgotten technique. I don't know. I still coach it, but I'm not sure how many other coaches are still coaching this type of thing. Anyway, let's get into it. So, this week, it's a bit of a classical pole plant versus a new school pole plant, with how this affects the upper body placement on steeps and how these two things work together. And anyway, let's start right now. As you can see, how bad are the conditions for racing? The visibility was absolutely terrible. But I just wanted to get in here. It's one of the first angles that we can really see what's going on is Hirscher. How Hirscher's upper body is always facing down the hill at the end of every turn. And I'm going to go through a few little things on how his pole plant that he's utilizing on this steep course is helping him maintain good counter through the end of the turn. Anyway, you can see right here the head, Hirscher looking down the hill into the next turn, shoulders facing down the hill, and over here with Kristoffersen, his head is facing this way, both arms are driving forward and towards the next gate, whereas Hirscher is looking down, his shoulders are facing down into the next turn, probably towards the next red gate. I think this is red. I can't tell from the camera right here. Yeah, it was a red. Oh, it was a delay. But as you can see, the other thing that happens is as Hirscher comes into his turn, he levels his hip out much earlier than Kristoffersen. And I think this is due to, you can see that Hirscher has a little bit more mobility in his hip joint. He gets a lot more lateral separation and more counter in his turns than Kristoffersen ever does. So I think this is something that is probably a mobility thing, but it's just interesting to note anyway. Because as you come around here, you can see the difference in body position again. So right here, Kristoffersen is facing directly across the hill, totally square with his skis, whereas Hirscher, his body is facing down the hill, looking down the hill. I mean, his outside arm's pretty wild in this specific frame, but it's just a consistent thing that happens through every single turn. And here's that little next part that I wanted to talk about, is where and how the placement of the pole plant affects how the shoulders work to balance over the outside ski and how it creates that counter and that separation through the end of the turn. And as you can see right here, this is really Hirscher's body position, and how he's holding the pole and where he's planting the pole is a very classical style blocking pole plant that we use in short turns for steep terrain. And you can see right here the angle of the pole, it's in line with the tail of his skis. That opens up his shoulder down the hill more, whereas you can have a look over here, Kristoffersen, same thing, following his skis, and he often doesn't pole plant. As you can see here, he doesn't even pole plant. He does pole plant sometimes, but it's always much later. It's not at the edge set, it's always at the edge change. And that's the difference between you know, a classical pole plant or a blocking pole plant used on steep terrain, and you know, one that's timing with the edge change. They're two different pole plants, and they should be used at, you know, their respective times in a race course or on the mountain when you're free skiing as well. So same thing here, you can see where Hirscher's planting his pole in line with the tail of his ski, and over here Kristoffersen's staying much more square. We'll move along a little bit and have a little bit more of a look at how Hirscher uses and sets up his pole plant to help keep his body facing down the hill. Poles are a really good external cue for skiing, because they're things that you can see, and when you direct your pole or point your pole in different directions, it can have a huge effect on where your body will face or different movements that your upper body will make. And Hirscher really utilizes this very well, and as you can see, he's directing the tip of his pole down the hill towards in line down the hill with the tail of his ski. And right here, you can't see in the white, but you can kind of follow down the black part up here and just gradually work your way down, and it's going to be somewhere around here. Inside hand forward and in, looking down the hill, shoulders facing down the hill. We're going to fast forward just a few frames to see where Kristoffersen was in the same place. Same thing here, both hands kind of like in a boxing stance, punching straight towards this blue gate, and his shoulders and hips are facing towards the blue gate, whereas Hirsch's was, as you can see, facing in this direction, straight towards his name in the section right here. It's this type of body position in a short turn on steep terrain is gonna, there's just a lot better position to bounce on the outside ski and get a lot more rebound quicker out of the ski. And that's where he's making up time in the course here, is his ability to bounce on the outside ski really quickly and get off it really quickly. And you can see right here, same thing. I'm going to keep pointing it out because it nearly happens on every single turn, is that inside hand forward and in, up, level shoulders, level hips, directing his pole plant down the hill, and pole planting happening at more of an edge set, and then changing the edges, as you can see there. And now we're going to have a look at what Kristoffersen does. So have a look at, he's going to plant the pole as his movements to change the edge, and it's much more in the middle of the turn, whereas Hirsch's was further back just as he passed the gate, and Kristoffersen's is right here as he's already moving to change the edges. And this is just a timing thing. This is where, you know, a blocking pole plant is something that is taught for steep terrain, and this course is a very steep course, and I think Hirscher really utilized this technique very well to time and keep his upper body stable moving into the next turn. And you can see this frame is almost nearly the same as the one earlier. Just the consistency in him getting into this position is on this steep terrain is really, this type of snow conditions and the visibility, it's insane. Same thing here, you can see preparation, inside hand forward and in, level shoulders, hips, directing his pole plant to down the hill in line with the tail of his ski directly down the hill. And over here you can see the same thing where Kristoffersen comes in and he actually doesn't even pole plant, he just swings his arm back. Anyway guys, I hope you liked this week's breakdown of the race. Obviously, there are many other factors that went into this race, but I thought this was a really interesting point of difference between the two skiers that I felt had an impact on the overall time. A thing to note, a blocking pole plant is a useful tactic for steep terrain, but is not the only way to make a pole plant. Different timings of pole plants and placements can be a really good tool in developing upper body awareness and discipline. But this is not the only way that I was describing in this video. If you like this type of video, remember to like, subscribe and share, and I'll see you guys for another episode next week. Thanks.